things every weekend, just about every weekend. So I enjoyed that too, yes.
And then you're off to Europe. So here you've gone to the south for the first time, you go to the west for the first time, and then I don't know when you know that it is that you're going to Europe and or Italy. So tell me this next kind of worldly experience.
I don't recall ever going from Fort Huachuca. I remember a troop train going to the coast to port of debarkation, someplace in Virginia. About 2 or 3 days after we were there, they told us to get our gear together and everything, all that kind of stuff, and we was going to do this and that and the other, and we was going on this ship. So I told the fellows that I was in charge of, don't worry about anything, we're not going anywhere. This is a dry run, they're just practicing. We got on the ship, and the next day, I looked around, nothing but water everywhere you could see. Everywhere you could see. And I thought, oh, I made a mistake.
And so I wonder if you even knew where you were off to at that point.
At that point, we didn't even know where we were going. We didn't even know where we were going.
So at least,
They hadn't told us anything.
yeah, the 93rd is in the Pacific. You're hoping that's not where you're going. You would have shipped out of
That's
California.
right, we were going
Yeah.
the different direction.
Yeah. So you know you're going someplace, but nowhere.
Yeah.
So now you arrive in Italy. What's your history? You know about the Romans and the Greeks and the people that are in that area, or you're just pulling up to the shore and looking out at a war zone, or what's your first impressions?
My first impression was after we got to Italy, when we debarked, there were a few, I guess they were quartermaster troops there, more or less to greet us. There were a few Italian people to greet us at Italy. Then finally, we moved from the port of debarkation, which I think was a place called Leghorn, Italy. And we, because I was part of the headquarters company, or the headquarters of the division, we were bivouacked out in the field of nowhere. I mean, there wasn't anybody close to us or anything that I can remember. And we stayed there, I guess, maybe a few days or weeks. And then we were trucked from there to, seemed like to me, I went to a place called Viareggio. And we lived in a house. At least I lived in a house. There was about, I guess, 8 or 9 of us that lived in this particular house. And we were bombed every night. I mean, they made sure we didn't get to sleep very good at night. The Italians and the Germans. They would bomb the place every evening and every night, and it looked like to me they would do it all night long.
So you met some Italians while you're there too. Some Italians are helping you out, and some Italians, how do you tell whether you're their friend or foe?
The Italians I met mostly were, and I didn't understand that either, were young. I thought all young men would be in the Italian army, or the Germans would have made them part of their army as such. but most of them were young men. And then I met a few Italian families. And I had one young man about so high, young man who attached himself to me, and it looked like he had no father or mother. He had a sister, but he had no father or mother. And he started hanging with me from the time I first met him till I had to leave him there by himself. I couldn't take him with me. They wouldn't let me take him with me. But I enjoyed that young man. That young man watched after me, showed me where to go, where not to go, what to do and what not to do. He was about 10, 12 years old.
How did he communicate with you and say he would know if something was dangerous? Or?
That young man knew where the danger was. He knew where most of the night shelling would occur, what time it would occur, where it would occur. And he'd tell me not to go, we wouldn't go those particular places at night or any place because of the fact that he knew. And he always kept me away from the dangerous places that were involved in the Italian area that we were in.
You went back to Italy in 2000,
Yes.
correct? You went on a sort of a mission to see the places where the 92nd had been. Tell me about that. Did you run into people you knew?
In the year 2000, I think that's the first time I met one young man. Well, he wasn't a young man then, he was probably about my age. In Viareggio, that remembered, he didn't know me personally, I don't think, but he said he remembered the division being in that particular area and the Buffalo Soldiers being in Viareggio. And he recalled the kindness of the Buffalo Soldiers, and he wanted to do the same thing for me while I was there, if possible. So we went to a restaurant. They close in the afternoon for fiesta, take a nap or whatever. And we went to this restaurant and they were closing. And because we were Buffalo Soldiers and had been there before, during the war that was, he decided he would keep the restaurant open. And he took us all in, kept us there all afternoon, even had a jukebox playing music, American music.
That's a great way
Which
to
was
remember.
very nice, I thought.
Yeah. And then you went into some of the different mountainous areas, and you went to like some of the graveyard areas and the monument where your folks had been, the 92nd had been remembered in those areas too. So your impressions of Italy going back, what?
My impressions of Italy was the people there loved us dearly. We were treated so much nicer in Italy than we were here in the United States. They were very grateful to have us to visit, to come back and visit the Italian people. And I've been invited back twice again since then. And the last time I was invited back was just last year, 2009. And they sent me a long flag with the Buffalo Soldier patch on it. They also had a patch on it for the Italian people. They had a copy of the Italian flag and the American flag together to show that we were truly friends. And they had written or had sewed onto it, and they also had signed, a lot of them had signed it with their handwriting with my name, to Albert Burke, Buffalo Soldier. We're grateful, come back.
And you might go back this summer when they have the opera, the Buffalo Soldier opera that those ladies were
Absolutely.
talking about. Yeah,
I
that'll be
would-
July of 2011
I would
or
enjoy
something.
that, I'm sure I would.
Again, that they use Italian sort of medium to tell the Buffalo Soldier story. So
That's
that's
right.
a new terrific way. When you were in Italy and they're bombing you every night, and then headquarters moves around and stuff, had you ever had the opportunity to meet some of our Medal of Honor winners, John Fox or Vernon Baker? Did you come across them in the field as all of you were on different missions?
I had not only met, I had met Baker at that time. I knew of his affair. I knew about many of the battles and things that we were involved in. I was in a position where I was informed. I stayed informed. In fact, they gave me the position as the head of the replacement company. I figured they gave that to get me out away from the headquarters, because I was kind of bigoted, I guess. I came from Ohio. I wasn't used to being told I couldn't do this or I couldn't do that. I mean, I talked to officers just like I talked to anybody else. A lot of times they said I would get in trouble, you know, the way I talked to some of the officers. I respected them. I said, sir. But as far as anything else was concerned, you didn't treat me like I was one of those guys from the South, that you treated some of those fellows from the South. I recall an officer calling me boy one time, and I straightened him out real quick. You don't call me boy. You see all them stripes up and down my arm, you call me sergeant or I won't answer you. Sir. And I meant that. And never had any problem with him anymore. He did say that he was going to talk to my commanding officer, who was a captain at that time, was Captain James Glimpse. I remember him very well. He was a nice fellow. He was one of the few white officers that was good to the colored troops. And I said, I wish you would. I said, then you'll find out what I'm talking about. And I said, because he treats us the same as he would anybody else. And I'm sure that he'll straighten you out real quick. I knew about things that I guess they didn't think I should have known or should know about because of my rank and because of my assignments. I knew about certain things that went on in headquarters. I knew about sending white officers down to line companies, and within a day or two they were right back at division headquarters. I knew about white officers being given awards that they didn't deserve. I knew these kind of things was going on. And I didn't think they wanted me around. So they looked like to me they'd give me assignments that would keep me away from division headquarters so that I wouldn't talk so much, keep my mouth shut. But I wasn't that type of guy. I was the type of guy that said it like it was. If I didn't like you, I said I didn't like you.
So they moved you to replacements,
So they
and
put me in the replacement company.
did you
Put
run?
me in charge of the replacement company, in fact.
And did you run across, that was Lieutenant John Fox there, or?
I ran across, I met John Fox, yes. I met John Fox moving up to battle one time. He was a nice guy. And you could tell he was the type of guy who would do just exactly what he did. I knew about how he did, and I went to the area that he was killed in. With a Lieutenant Hogge, I think his name was, Hogge. Seemed like to me that was his name. He was a grave registration officer. It's a terrible thing when you have to look at the many dead soldiers. You know that you could be one of them. Or you could have been one of them. I met some of the other soldiers that had been there. I think I met one or two. And I met one or two after that also when I went back to Italy in 2001, I think it was. One of them had been a prisoner of war.